You are now listening to Workplace War Stories on the I Never Worry podcast, the #1 place to unpack that emotional baggage you've been carrying around for far too long. Here's your opportunity to process those challenging situations at work through emotionally intelligent conversations with the EI guy, DB Bedford.
All right. Welcome to Workplace War Stories with DB Bedford, the EI guy. And we have Miss Casie and Suzanne in the house today. Welcome aboard, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And so today I want to, Workplace War Stories is, is set up for us to have an opportunity to, we've all been in the workforce, for a little bit, and we've had our experiences with that. And so when I put this platform together, I always thought about some of my friends I talk to, and they always got a story about at work. I had tons of stories at work, and then I see people always complain on social media. So I'm like, why not create a space where we can chop it up about work, right? And then, kind of unpack, a lot of the things that be going on. So that's what we're going to do here today. And, for those who are new listeners or whatever, I want you guys do me a favor and Cass, just go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about the type of work that you used to do.
So, you said introduce myself as far as just...
Like Jay-Z, allow me to reintroduce myself.
I think I'm going to, now that I'm 50, I'm going to just be Casie.
Okay, who were you at first?
I was Cassandra Bedford.
Oh, I thought you was a spiritual gangstress.
She's coming too, spiritual gangster. She's still in development. She's still in her infancy stages. Infancy. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, good.
You put
an emphasis on her infancy stages. And I used to actually work for in probation, for the probation department and law enforcement, working with juveniles.
Okay.
Did that for 15 years.
All right.
Yeah.
And in that 15-year career, you got any war stories?
Ooh, from day one. I mean, it was... You talk about a jungle, working in the jungle. It was a jungle.
Okay. We're gonna get to that. Miss Suzanne, thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I come from a lot of different careers. World Bank, Department of Defense, high tech, mom and pop, academia, and a world traveler.
Okay. Well, I think you definitely have a collection of war stories.
I got some collection.
Just a few for you.
And for those who don't know me as well, I come from working in probation and, working with young adults and youth, crisis intervention, things of that nature in a long-standing run with being an entrepreneur. So I definitely have a bunch of war stories myself. And so we're just going to get right into it. And so I want to start with Suzanne, right? Because when you sat down, you was like, "Oh, I got some stuff." where you want to start? And so what I will say is, when you hear the term workplace war stories, tell me what comes up for you, and then the first story that comes up to you that you would like to just dive right into.
Yeah, I think that's a great question because it's a metaphor, right? War is a metaphor, and it's used often when there are sort of two very different agendas, two very different goals or philosophies. And so we have to ask, what is the difference? What are the two sides when we say workplace war story, right? And for some, they might visualize people actually physically at war. And I think it's less that and more we are at war with our expectations of what we believe a workplace should be like, how it should function. And on the other side, we have how it is. And so we are at war with why it can't be the way we expect it to be, and at war with ourselves over coming to work every day.
Right.
Fighting the battle.
Yeah.
Loading up.
Yeah.
Getting ready. Right?
Right.
So it becomes less of a job and more of a, almost like a task to make it through the day. I mean, we even use phrases like that, make it through the day.
Just trying to make it through the day.
Just trying to make it through the day, standing upright, you
Yeah.
know? So I think the war metaphor is really, really appropriate.
You know, and just to add to that, you know, when I thought about it, I really believe that there is this battle of beliefs all day, every day. I feel like not only just in the workplace, but everywhere you go. But since most people spend a significant amount of time in the workplace, all throughout your day, you are bucking up against someone else's belief about something. And as long as you guys believe the same thing, it's smooth, right? Like if I want to eat here and you don't mind sitting not eating here, then it was good. But if there's a problem somehow, somewhere, then it gets challenging. And I think where it really gets challenging is if you, your manager or your supervisor has a different belief than you, right? Then it means that, you know, things that you try to do and it could be as simple as just a request for time off, right? If they don't believe that you should be taking time off for whatever reason, then they may deny your request, and then there you go. And so, and without understanding that, I think those inner conflicts, right, and the inability to protect your peace on a day-to-day basis happen, and you don't even know why, right? Because you haven't had a chance to kind of unpack or just kind of reverse engineer, like, why is this happening in the first place? So workplace war stories and that battle of beliefs, I believe that a lot of people should be able to relate to that. And so we just want to learn how to talk it through, unpack it, and, you know, and have a little fun with these conversations.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that there's a belief system that is at war within the organization itself. So we are stepping onto or into a battlefield because typically soldiers didn't make the war. They're simply fighting the war. And so you have a mission statement, a philosophy, a goal. You have managers and supervisors, you know, supposedly personifying that, promoting that, advocating that company's mission or goal or what have you. And then we as, you know, sort of the soldiers, the workers, we experience incongruency with that. And so then that creates a war as well. Who are we fighting? We fighting our coworkers? We fighting our supervisors? We're fighting the man? Are we fighting the system? Like, who are we fighting?
Right.
And as you know, we typically go home and fight with our spouse
Right.
rather than fight with our work people.
Yeah.
So I think there's just so many elements here. So a war story. Well, as you both said already, there's so many of them. Where to start? Can you give me maybe a concept or a word or something that comes to mind, and I'll think of one?
Okay. Well, I mean, we could do it a couple of ways. We can, you know, first thing comes to mind is a lot of people deal with that passive aggressive behavior. So if you have a scenario where you think about a situation where someone's being passive aggressive, or we have these characters that we've been you know, vetting through that we're going to be using for, you know, the show. And you know, some of the characters are, you know, Feisty Felicia or Militant Mike or Sheila should have been retired or TMI Tina, right? And just for the listener, these characters is a representation of personalities that our audience members have when we ask the question, they just start just blurting out all of these different names fluently. Yeah. And if you was to go to my social media page, you'd see me ask the question, and you'll see it over 100-some comments, which to me validates that this is real, right? We're not making it up.
Oh yeah.
And there's a lot of commonality.
Yeah.
So it's either Lion Linda or Lion Larry, either Feisty Felicia or Feisty Fred, right?
Yeah.
Lazy, like it doesn't matter the gender.
No.
People can identify
for sure
with these type of personalities. So
for sure.
And any one of those.
I love the Sheila should be retired.
Everybody knows her or him. You're just like,
Bye,
really just let it go.
Yeah. Well, first, coming from an academic sort of point of view and a professor of social science, I would like to preface this conversation with, we have the same characters in all environments. We sort of just plug and play. Because that's what we believe will be in all environments. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. many of us have not worked in a utopia workplace. And so we go into the workplace already trying to identify who is the lazy Larry, who is the sneaky Sheila, who is the flirty Frank, right? We're already working at making sense of our environment. And the way we make sense of our environment is to size you up and figure out what to do with you. Yeah. And all I know, right?
That's
I
true,
know,
though.
I know. They don't teach you that in the HR
They
class, do they?
One angle is Sheila should have been retired. That's what I first come to mind is someone who is in the way, so to speak, and it's kind of clear, because sometimes we have to call it what it is. Now, how we go about doing it is a whole nother conversation. But what would you say to that? Then I want to let Cass tap in. Yeah,
I did have that experience. So as a new professor, I was being evaluated by someone who had been there forever, a department chair, should have been retired. Department chair that it was a very small rural community college. So department chair who probably had in his belief that, he was more in tune with like a Rutgers University or something. Been there a long time and I was new. Okay. So he came to evaluate me, and part of the evaluation is, does the instructor bring in outside resources to the students? So not just her own beliefs and attitudes and values, but outside resources. So we were talking about logos, pathos, and ethos. Anyway, long story. So I brought in a couple of videos, and I showed the videos, and they were of a woman. So I'm showing these videos. I'm thinking this is awesome. I've got all these different resources. I'm showing YouTube video. I'm showing a TED Talk. I'm lecturing. The students do an activity. Then they do group work. I mean, that's all, like, it's in. So I'm feeling very good about this. I get called to the formal evaluation review. He lays the sheet on the table, and he says, I'm going to let you read this. I'm going to leave the room because I feel like you're going to get emotional. So already kind of just assuming how I'm going to act, probably because I was a young woman. And so I read it, and essentially the gist was that because I thought so highly of myself, that I not only lectured, but I showed recordings of myself. So he thought this lady was me talking, because maybe all white people sound alike, I'm not sure. He said it was me. And so he said that not only would I not teach there again, but that he would do his best to make sure I didn't teach anywhere again.
Wow.
And I didn't cry. Okay. And he came back and he said, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not crying."
He actually said that?
Wow. He actually said that. Oh. And he was a pretty big, tall guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm a pretty little person. I'm sitting down. He's standing up. And he says, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not crying." And I didn't really know how to respond other than to say, to not respond to that and to say, what is it that I can clarify about what, et cetera, et cetera. And he really didn't want to hear it. He said, "That was you. I don't know why you would say it wasn't you. It was your voice. I clearly know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this a long time." So, I said, well, I appreciate your input and your feedback, and I am really disappointed that as a communication professor and social scientist that you are, very closed-minded. And to which he just opened the door and ushered me out. So I guess you're asking, what's the lesson in that? What do you do with that? I don't have an answer specifically for what you do with other people other than what does that mean for me? Did it bother me? Did it hurt me? Did it stunt me? Did it stop me? Did it propel me? Because I think for me, the best way to handle workplace war is to simply figure out my position. Yeah. I can't change you. I couldn't have grappled the gun away from him. Right. He took his shot and hit me right between the eyes. I mean, and so I swallowed the loss, which didn't end up being a loss because I found mentors and people to help me figure it out. And
but how did you feel in that moment, though? Right, like when he came in and he's condescending and sarcastic. "Oh, I thought you'd be, teary-eyed right now," and just very insulting, and then insisting that this video is you. Like, how insulting is that? Like, for me to tell it's not me, and you're like, what? Like, how you gonna tell me that's not you? And it's like, because it's not me. Like, so to be like that and then not even give you any room, like there was no negotiating. It was just like, it was a wrap. So that had to be a feeling. I was
defeated beyond defeated.
Yeah, that's what let's talk about that for a second.
My exterior posture stayed pretty stoic, and my interior posture was on the floor. I was extremely defeated, walked out of there straight to my car and broke down, cried, defeated, just couldn't wrap my head, just so much, especially that someone that essentially I would look up to, because this person is in a more successful position than I am, longer in the field, etc., was just so incongruent with my thoughts about what a person of his position would be. So yeah, extremely defeated, and I think that's why anyone working should have a circle, a mentor, a person they emulate, even if it's a celebrity. But you know, those silly bracelets, what would someone do, right? Anyone. Like, so what would my mentor do? What would it's almost like AA. You have to call them immediately, you know, and say, I need help here.
Right.
But yeah, extremely defeated. And the warrior in me, I don't know what rating we have this podcast, but the warrior in me was,
let it go.
You know, fuck you, fuck this, fuck that. And, you know, but the key there is the warrior in me.
Yeah.
So I'm going to fight back.
Right.
But I'm going to fight back in a way that's going to work for me.
And I think that's super important, because I know that there's a listener, someone's going to listen to this, and they have moments that they feel defeated at work for whatever reason. And understanding that it's okay for the feeling, right? So I want to get, you got me, right? But then the next thing I have to do is I have to move forward, I have to stay in motion. And so you reached out to get a different perspective from someone. You needed someone that you respected and admired to hear what happened and then reassure you, like you told me before we turned the mics on, to make sure you bet on yourself. Like, don't forget, like, that's their loss, which is very hard, right? People hate to hear that in that moment, but the reality of it is, when you double down on yourself and you work things through, you know, the next door will open, right? Or the next opportunity will be there, but you got to be in a position to get it.
You do. And I'll tell you, this mentor, these people cannot be like your best friend or your family, because they're going to tell you that regardless. And quite honestly, they don't know shit. They really don't.
Right.
You have to not only have a mentor who knows something, but who you know will tell you the truth. Like, yeah, you were wrong. Or, yeah, you need to step up your game. Or, yeah, he made some valid points, or whatever that is. We ultimately wrote a letter, never sent it. You know the story, you know, the process of that. Wrote a letter. It was a dang good letter.
Right.
And once I wrote the letter, it wasn't my intent not to send it. But once I wrote the letter and kind of vented and processed it in a way that was logical, put it in words that I could say in a letter and not just, I was like, I'm good.
You were able to release it.
Yeah.
That's good.
And before we let Casie in, I know what you meant when you said the letter, but what if somebody didn't? They missed that when this exercise, if you will, of you know, putting something in a writing form after you went through something. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's a process of essentially releasing your thoughts, your attitudes, your values, your beliefs in a way that is productive to addressing them. So it's not simply just venting. You know, it's not the old adage of light a fire and burn everything and you'll be done with it, right? It's more so that you can see it and you write the sentence. And sometimes when I would write a sentence, I'd say, well, that's not exactly true. That's what I believe, or that's what I'd like to say, but that's not really true. And so you start to process in a way that's more objective, more, you have a more of a ability to assess it in a way that makes sense. Also, some people prefer to role play. So you would be that person, him, and I would be me, of course, and then I would talk to you. I'm not as big a fan of that, is because I think it can get off track. A lot of us don't like to write page after page after page, so we stick to being concise and direct and assertive. I think that's important. So yeah, you write the letter and you get out how you want to say it. And, we tend to be nicer to people than to ourselves. So when you write a letter, you're usually more pragmatic. You're usually more objective. You use nicer words, probably more intentful than just fuck you. And so, that'd be a nice short letter, and a lot of people deserve it, right? But, that doesn't help anybody. Well, it might help me. But so, yeah, I think that's a great choice. It's an good option.
Nice. And lastly, what character would you call that gentleman? If you had to give him a character name, what would you?
Well, he should have been retired.
He should have been retired.
Because he had too much power over. In other words, he wasn't acting as a mentor anymore. He was acting as an all-knowing and someone who could decide the fate of somebody else.
Yeah, I think they got somebody know-it-all character too.
Yes.
It was a know-it-all.
But sometimes know-it-alls are just in it to shame you in a meeting. Then there's the know-it-alls who I think they have the power.
Right.
And I think it's the power in his position. So, powerful Pete or whatever.
Powerful.
Yeah, powerful Pete was.
Or like power pushing Pete.
Power pushing.
Right, because
power pushing Pete. That's what it was. When he said on that evaluation, I'll make sure you don't only work here, but you don't work anywhere.
The audacity.
Right. Mind you, I left and got a job at ASU.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, the audacity.
Really?
Just because he didn't believe in something or didn't like something, he's not only going to smash on you now, he's one that.
Yeah, just to end your career.
It's not like I did something unethical. You would have thought that I would have
evil
stole.
Eric.
Right.
He is evil Eric. Who has the power, right?
Or dictator Don.
Yeah, let's get some
Or
character.
just Dick.
You know what I'm saying? Casie, you've been very patient. So
I have. Did I do good? It's hard for me not to yap.
I was over here looking at the timer. I was like, she's holding it down.
One of the only people that can kind of keep me tempered is my person over here.
Yeah, no, I love it.
I know you do.
All right, Cass. So, just for the record, so Casie is my wife of 10 years.
It's been that long.
Oh, details are sketchy.
Short. I don't know.
But
I don't really know.
And when we were talking about workplace war stories, I thought I knew this lady, right? And then she swears she's told me this before, but I have not heard this. So I'm like, babe, come up with this podcast, this workplace war stories, give people opportunity. You know me, I'm spitting my stuff. I'm like, it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. I'm like, she was like, yeah, I got tons of work stories. I'm like, you do? Like what? And she said,
I was like, oh yeah, I slapped my boss one time. And he was like, what?
I wish you would have been there that day.
No. And I was like,
wait,
yeah.
What? So
he was like, what do you mean? I said, well, he pushed me and I slapped him. And he was like, what? Why? I said, I just reacted, right? You put your hands on me. That's my natural reaction. Yeah, that literally actually happened. I was a lot younger. I will say that I was in my 20s.
Put it in the context.
I was in my 20s.
Okay.
I was working. It was a very eclectic environment, right?
Okay.
So without, we don't use names and stuff, but it was, you didn't even know I worked in the city. I was working in San Francisco, so it doesn't happen often. And it was a situation, and this person was always all over the place. He owned the, I don't want to say it without saying it, but he owned it was a school. I'll just say that.
Okay.
That doesn't give you too much. And he owned it, and he was just all over the place. And this was one of those moments, and I was trying to tell him about something that somebody we owed money to, and they wanted a refund. And he got real flippant. I was like, we need to and he just said, I don't want to, and he just pushed me. And, mine. And
so wait a minute, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
So you guys.
I'm not leaving anything else out.
Right, hold on. I
want
want to make sure it's clear. But you're having a conversation. Let's slow this down.
We were having
a conversation, and you're letting him know that somebody needed a refund for something. And then you just so okay, you made the statement.
And he was like, I'm not dealing with that. I don't have time. And I was like, well, they're on the phone.
So what was going on with him at the time? What made him just be like?
That was his personality. He was very much.
What kind of personality is that? What kind of character?
Oh,
he explosive was like, Eric.
Or he was like all over the place, Alan. He was just, I actually think he was on acid or something most of the time. Like he was very,
acid
very.
Aaron?
I don't know. He was just, like I said, he was just like out there where the buses don't run most of the time.
Okay.
But he had a skill set that was very unique and that people paid for. So that was what people came. But he always had conflict with people all the time. It was not, just unique to me. He had conflict all the time. And again, and in this moment, and I was telling him what we needed to do. And, the person was threatening to sue the school and all this. And he was just, and he just got frazzled. And he would do this all the time and have moments and explosive moments and then say, I forgot to take my medicine this morning, or I didn't have my coffee. He always had a reason. He'd come back and apologize. And I, in this, for whatever reason, I don't know what. And I was talking to him and I was like, no, we need to deal with it now. And I kind of was like, before he was trying to leave the room and he pushed me out of the way. And just my instant reaction was to slap the shit out of him. And that's exactly what I did. And then it was funny because actually the police came. And I actually
I need background checks before I get married. Around.
I had a background check. I told him about
wedding
this in my
war stories.
Wedding war stories.
I told him about this. They came, and he at that time he still had a very, very red, very fresh handprint on his cheek from where I smacked the dog shit out of him. And so, I told him the story, and he was like, well, I don't remember pushing her, but I probably did. And I was like, you absolutely did. I wouldn't have just slapped you. I mean, that's not my MO, right? And so the police were trying not to laugh and said, well, we're going to just call this a draw because he clearly, even if he was the one who put his hands on you first, pushed you, he has a very clear handprint on his face still. And this was like 45 to an hour after it happened. So clearly, I just told him, I got my check, my last check, clearly, and I hopped back on board and went home. But in hindsight, had I just, not react, I don't know. In hindsight, I probably would have still done the same thing. I can't say I'd have done anything different, and not. So
even today, so because you preface it by being young, so even today,
if somebody put their hands on me, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah.
Depending on the again, you'd have to take into consideration the circumstances, who it was, what's going on with them. But just in general, yeah, I'm very much, I'm all about peace and love, but my fire, woo.
That's where that spiritual gangsters come from.
It definitely does.
And I do like to tell people when it comes to emotional intelligence, right? Because someone will be like, well, that ain't EI.
Oh, it wasn't.
Well, when it comes to people putting your hand, so emotional intelligence does not mean you do not get pissed off at people. It doesn't mean you don't feel, right? Emotional intelligence, like you identify the emotions, you try to be smart about what you do with it, right? And so, but if somebody puts their hands on you, I think like how I practice EI now, where if you, back in the day, you put your hands on me, you probably come up missing, right? Like it'll be like a rap, like I'd go to the extreme where today I probably would just get you up off me and then go on about my business. I'm gonna get my lick back, but I'm done with it. But because I have more thought about how I respond to things. So it's not the man put his hands on you first.
Yeah,
right?
He pushed me.
You
it was different. He pushed me. I could have pushed him back. I didn't have to slap him.
Well, I mean, that's all subjective.
But I could have punched him. I didn't punch him. I didn't ball up the fist.
And that's what I was gonna go to. Like you didn't old school mollywop.
Oh, but
right?
it was such a disgusting, such a just humiliating
slap. Though
it was probably worse than a punch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so you got your last check.
Like the Will Smith slap?
No, like damn near some baby powder in your hand and then smack him. It was one of those. It was a good. Ooh, the sound hurt. I can remember. I can feel it still.
And so that's funny. So you got your last check
and had to find a new job.
On your way home. So that, and because at the end of the day, we want to be able to protect our peace at all times and at all costs. So let's just go. We're ready to start wrapping it up, but I want to go back around, see if anybody got any additional thoughts around this conversation of workplace war stories.
Thank you. And wow.
Hey, won't nobody put their hands on you with me.
I'm sticking with her.
I got your back, sis.
And I've been here the whole time. Wow. Okay.
Right.
Never slapped nobody. Thought about it.
Oh, I've slapped several people.
I'll just say this. It's really interesting that what sort of got you, what supported your decision to this day is that your ethics, your mission, protect the kids at all costs.
At all costs.
And your mission essentially was to do the right thing. And I think that, if you get nothing else, is a take-home message. For example, if you sign up to be an advocate for children, then you're going to have to find your voice and be an advocate for children. If you sign up to cover a shift and to do the right thing, then you got to do that, right? I always choose humanity over jobs and everything else, and I have, the ability to do that in a lot of ways. So I always choose humanity. If I feel like a policy is inhumane in some way, or what I'm being asked to do goes against humanity, I'm out. Policy manual or not. And I believe you can't sign up for any work position until you know your policy.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I love that.
I like that. And thank you for that, because that's true. You definitely do. And as an advocate, and for me, and I think that's probably why we are as bonded as we are, we both have this thing about injustice. Mm-hmm. If we see injustice anywhere, we're just like ready. You're gonna pencil whip their ass to death. And I'm gonna, and yeah. So you know how that story ends, but it is what it is. It works. It's our balance, right?
I feel you.
Spiritual gangster.
I'm the academic gangster.
You absolutely are. You absolutely. But the truth of the matter is, and I mean, in poor DB, because I was very good at going to work and being totally professional every day. I smiled. He had I think we probably were married probably a year before he knew how feisty I was. And so he's had so many conversations where people are like, oh, like, how did you not know? Right? And I just say, well, you don't read the fine print.
Well, and it's contextual. You didn't have to be feisty with DB.
No, I did not.
Right.
That's true.
And so you're listening to Workplace War Stories. And today we have Miss Casie and Suzanne on, them DB Bedford, the EI guy. This was a great conversation. This is we're piloting, this podcast, and we're just talking things through, and we want to make sure that you, the listener, you love it. And we're looking forward to all feedback when it comes to Workplace War Stories. We definitely want to hear your Workplace War Story, so feel free to send an email that'll be connected to this audio. And if you want to come on as a guest, or you want to send in a scenario, we'll definitely round table and have some conversation around it. I will close by something that Suzanne said, and I don't want us to miss that. And when you do end up getting a job, right, or your career, there supposedly policies. Now, sometimes they're outdated, but there's policies, right? The conversation is around being governed by something. There is a way that things should be done that has been agreed upon, and for the most part, that's what you follow. But what she said that was really, really important is the policies that you have for yourself, your own SOP, right? Standard operating procedure. And so for me, mine is rooted in emotional intelligence, right? So I govern myself about my ability to be self-aware, manage the way I respond to things, situational awareness, and the relationships around me. And that is my SOP amongst other things. But when things are happening or I'm interacting, like, this is what I'm governing myself by. And I would encourage you, that anyone that's listening, what is your SOP? What is your standard operating procedure? Because when you have your policies and you keep them updated, then 99% of your decisions are already made. And you'll know when those times come and it seems like you just can't, you just can't take it no more. You just don't know what to do next. Go ahead and govern yourself by the policies that you have assigned yourself to, so that, you don't have to waver over what's next, right? Just do what's right. Do what you know to do, and don't second guess it. And you will certainly come out on top.
Yep. Peace, love, and happiness, but don't take no shit.
That's it. All right. Peace.